All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Ironman World Championships Race Preview and Race Day Tips webinar. Our presenter this evening is Coach Russet Morrow. So Russet has been with QT2 Systems since 2009, first as an athlete, and then she started as a coach in 2018. She's raced triathlon for years across all the different distances and has competed in at Kona 4 times and is returning this year as both an athlete and a coach. So welcome, Russet. Thanks for doing this presentation today.
Thanks, Reem. And just so everybody knows, Reem is going to be, she very nicely volunteered to control the slides tonight. So you'll hear me say every so often, next slide. So I hope that's not too distracting, but thank you, Reem. So I'm happy to be here, and it's actually kind of fun and a little bit nerve-wracking to kind of research these race day tips and the goals for a race day, just because, I'm one of the athletes racing this year, but it's really exciting. So next slide, please. Just a quick overview of what we're going to be talking about for the next 40 or so slides. We have a few slides for you tonight. First, the QT2 Five Cornerstones. I mean, if you're a QT2 athlete, you've heard of these most likely before. You're at least a little bit familiar with them. And so what's going to happen is the way that the preview is structured, we're going to follow these 5 cornerstones, which I'll explain in a minute. We're going to be talking about the final weeks. We're in that final home stretch right now. So just kind of what to expect, maybe what should you be thinking about right now. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then we'll talk about race week, both early in the race week and a little bit later on in the race week again. Training, mental fitness, what's going to be happening then. And then we'll talk about race day as well. Next slide. So QT2 Five Cornerstones. As you can see, we kind of bucket our training philosophy out. First thing to think about is the training and nutrition and restoration. That all feeds into preparation for your event or for your race. Then we've got event fueling and pacing, which feeds into execution for that race. And then, last but not least is mental fitness. So again, this will be sprinkled throughout the presentation tonight. All right, next slide. So we are in the final weeks. We're going to do the next slide real quick too, Reem. Thanks. Again, we've got the race week 5-ish or so weeks out. We're in our peak run, peak bike volume weeks right now. Kind of depends on your taper scheme. Depending on what type of athlete you are, your coach may have you on a longer or shorter taper scheme. You can talk to them about it if you have questions. You've got your taper coming up. Everybody sort of looks forward to that. I think you can kind of have time to do a couple of more things with your family before you head out to the race. Just a couple of things to think about. Try simulating race conditions as you can during training. So open water practice, if it's not too chilly, I'd try that with a speed suit, or you can certainly do it in a pool as well. If you've never used one before, good to use. Figure out where you're supposed to put the body glide on yourself so you're not surprised on race day. For your bike and run, you're going to be thinking about heat, some wind, and a little bit of hills as well. Make sure you're doing that dress rehearsal ride. Again, thinking about the body glide, thinking about making sure what works for you, what doesn't, swapping things in and out so you're not doing it race week in a panic. Thinking about, zeroing on your bike fit, and call your local bike shop and get in for a tune-up there. Next slide. Just a quick note on heat acclimation, and all of you guys who live like in Texas or Florida are lucky. You don't need to worry about this. I live in Massachusetts, so this is something that I obsess about before the race. If you need to do a heat acclimation, again, there's resources on the QT2 website, or you can talk to your coach as well, but you want it to be 2-ish or so weeks long, kind of about 3 weeks out for the race, or time it so that you are kind of finishing that heat acclimation when you leave for the race. Think about a session a day, mixing your sessions up between aerobic and best effort workouts. And it's not real hard to do. Again, it can be done by training indoors with a no fan. I'll have no fan plus an additional maybe long sleeve shirt on for, part of my long ride even, or for a training session. I know somebody who actually uses a space heater when she rides indoors. That's hardcore. It's very committed to the process there, but just kind of thinking about putting that extra stress on your body. You can use a sauna as part of the process. Again, you can use it before your session to kind of preheat your body, get it ready for what's coming. Or you can, you can hop in the sauna after you've done a bike or a run. If you're near a gym or you've got a sauna in your house, maybe you run to the gym, you sit in the sauna for, a little bit, and then you're done. You're done heat acclimating for that session. And the purpose is to increase your blood volume, to increase your sweat rate and help you start sweating earlier so your body can better regulate its temperature, and to decrease the sodium content in sweat. So next slide, please. All right, just thinking about nutrition and restoration in these final weeks. You've all heard this probably 1,000 times before, but it bears repeating. Make sure you're drinking half of your body weight in ounces outside of what you're drinking in your training. Make sure you're eating really well. In fact, while I was working on this presentation, I thought, oh no, I haven't eaten my fruits for the day. So I was like mowing down apples just to kind of get my density up there. Remember, you can have a replenishment or cheat meal. A lot of times people will do it, prior to their long bike for the weekend, long run, something like that, high in carbs, low in fat. Make sure you're not skimping on your workouts because you want to get your body used to all of that fueling for your workouts. And you just want to be practicing. Now's not the time to kind of experiment or start skimping on things. Try making sleep a priority. I know it's really hard. I'm not real good at this, but certainly going into the race, take a little bit of me time, go to bed a little bit early, try to get that sleep in. Make sure you're using a recovery drink. If you're a QT2 athlete, you have access to clean recovery or clean discounts after all of your sessions, and then start popping that omega-3 if you haven't been doing that, just as a precautionary anti-inflammatory measures. It really helps you recover, I think. Hydration, reduce less sleep and diet. We'll talk a little bit more about that in further on slides. And then start to taper down the caffeine intake. I know for some people, it's a little bit harder than others. You got time to figure it out, but, start tapering down in the next couple of weeks. So next slide, please. So fueling, not just nutrition and restoration. Again, you're going to hear this a couple of times, I think, throughout this presentation. Fuel according to your plan during every session. And because Kona is so hot, you are probably going to want to aim for about 1.5 times the amount of sports drink in your fueling plan. So practice, start training the gut. If you haven't already started doing that, thinking about drinking a little bit more during your sessions. And honestly, you're going to be sweating so much with your heating and your long sleeve shirt and all of that you're going to be sweating more anyway. So you may as well just drink the extra stuff. You got to train your gut for race day so that you don't blast at race day and end up with any sort of GI issues. And you want to end your training sessions, like it says, in a less depleted state. And on race day, remember to fuel. Again, you're going to see a lot more slides that emphasize this. That is one variable that you have complete control of during race day. So practice it now. So next slide, please. So pacing the final weeks, just kind of dial in your race-specific trainings, or if you're taking it easy, just train what you're supposed to be training. You're not going to all of a sudden be a different person on race day. So just train how you're supposed to be training. Keep it steady. You've made it this far, right? So keep on doing that. Next slide. All right, final weeks, mental fitness. Good luck. Begin reducing external pressures as best you can. I know I'm a mom, not really reducing any external pressures. I am trying to get a little bit more sleep, and my family does know I'm going to Kona, so they're trying to leave me alone as they can. But think about what you really have to do versus maybe some pressure or some stress that you're putting on yourself and you're thinking you're obsessing too much about, and try to get rid of that. I know it's easier said than done. Begin visualizing the race if you haven't started doing that. Take a look at, okay, what does a great performance look like from me? Not necessarily race specific, but how does it look? How does it feel? What did I do to get there? Did I nail my nutrition? Was my pacing just right? Like, just kind of get in the moment of that. Do some coping imagery. I'm terrified of getting a flat. Now I've had a flat in 2 races, so I've now lived that. But in terms of, okay, if something goes wrong, like what's the worst thing that could go wrong during the race, and what can I do to fix it? So you're really preparing yourself for the race. If it actually does happen, then you know what to do, and you've also kind of put yourself in control of finding a solution as well. And then success imagery. What does my specific race look like? So what does Kona look like on the swim, on the bike, on the run? Pick a few things. All right, what does that look like? How am I feeling? You can list out your goals and your targets for the race, just to kind of see something on paper and know what you're working toward and what you're committing to. And internalizing those race-specific workout feels. To me, that means when I do a Z2 run, what is my nutrition? What am I feeling? What do I need to tell myself? I had a long run yesterday. What do I need to tell myself to psych myself up for that second half of the run where I really wasn't feeling it? I took some caffeine and I was like, yeah, everything's good. So here's how I feel when this happens. Here's how I feel halfway through the run, and here's what I do. So really start to think about that. So next slide, please. In terms of logistics, looking at the athlete guide, it's not out yet, or at least I checked around, I think about 1 o'clock today. It wasn't out yet. It's supposed to be out by now. So we'll see. Just make sure every race has kind of little funny things about it you need to pay attention to. Again, get that bike tune up, make any sort of lists, what we were talking about before in terms of your own personal list, literal packing list, that kind of thing. Oh, I need to order more, whatever, to make sure it comes in time. Again, purchase any of those needed items, extra CO2 cartridges, that kind of thing. If you're going to tri-bike your bike, it's probably gone by now, but, thinking about, okay, oh, shoot, I forgot to pack my race wheels with them, or I forgot to pack my speed suit with my bike gear. So I made to make sure I pack that kind of thing. If Kona is anything like previous Ironmans in the last couple of years, there should be an email coming out from active.com. I haven't seen it, but I'm guessing, and I am not a fortune teller, that they'll send one out, and then you'll register for check-ins similar to Ironmans that have been happening since COVID. So be on the lookout for an email. And if people have already gotten it, let me know, because I haven't seen one yet. And confirm any reservations. I just checked in with at the place that I'm staying. I checked in with them just to make sure they have me coming when I think I'm coming. So next slide. So early in the race week, let's talk about that. Next slide. Thanks, Reem. Final sessions. You're not going to have a long run once you get to Kona, or the week before, most likely. You're not going to make any fitness gains once you get into Kona, right? Now's not the time to say, my form doesn't look good on Training Peaks, so now I've got to run like an extra 2 hours or something. No, we're done. The hay is in the barn. If you arrive within 7 days of the race, try getting out earlier in the morning when it's a little bit cooler, a little bit less crowded. If you've arrived earlier, you've probably acclimated by then, so it's not as big a deal to get out early. And honestly, it kind of keeps you on mainly on time too, if you're getting up and out early. Again, don't overtrain. Don't put yourself in a panic. You made it there for a reason. You've trained enough. You're fine, right? Err on the side of recovery. It's way more important than you're rested than to be sharp. On the course, if you can, stay within your zones, and by race day, or because you're all hyped up about the event, it may feel too easy. Do what your coach says, do what you're supposed to be doing, right? Be careful of packs of cyclists along the Queen K. You're going to see that all week. There's going to be people out, and some of them are training because they're not doing Kona and they're just kind of along for the ride. Some people really get swept up in this sort of, mystique that Kona is, and they end up like wearing themselves out before the race even starts. Next slide. All right, race week, nutrition and restoration. Again, if you've got a core diet fueling plan, chances are all this already, but again, bears repeating, just as we're getting closer to races, eat a relatively normal diet prior to the race. Because it's Kona, we suggest you add some extra salt to your meals. Certainly hydration is staying a focus. That half your body weight in, ounces a day still stands, even race week. Drink plenty of fluid, sports drink noon and water, not too much water because you don't want to flush those electrolytes, but certainly sports drink in noon. And again, that's in addition to what you've already lost during your workouts. And then just walk around town with a bottle. You're sipping a bottle. Everybody else is going to do it. Just have it with you at all times just to sip on. Again, you're tapering caffeine intake throughout the week. Hopefully for many of you, none on the day prior to race day, or very, very little maybe. Again, you're still taking a recovery drink. You're doing what you always do because that's the plan. And again, sleeping 8 hours a night and trying to stay off your feet when you're not training. It is a very exciting place. I tend to walk around too much. The expo is super fun to go to. They've got all sorts of stuff there. They've got a lot of vendors there. They do have the Normatec booths there. So if you don't have them with you, I imagine they'll have them they'll have a Normatec booth there, and you'll be able to sit in your boots for a while too, if you need to do that. But again, just try to take it easy that week. It's going to be real hard. But you've got post race. Hopefully you're sticking around a couple of days and can have fun then. All right, next slide. Race week fueling, again, we're hammering this home, right? Continue to fuel and hydrate as you are supposed to. Don't skimp. If anything, you can take more fluid, up to 2 bottles an hour, again, just to prime that gut, to make sure that you are topping off your supplies, and be liberal with your recovery drinks. Next slide. All right, again, pacing, same as I've been saying all along. Just don't overdo it. It will be so tempting. You're going to feel great. Your buddy's up the road. You want to catch up with them. No, stay within your zones. Do what you're supposed to be doing. That got you here. You'll be good. Next slide. All right, so race week, mental fitness. Again, you're trying to reduce external pressures. Hopefully by the time you get to Kona, all of that is fading away. There'll be still a couple of emails to answer maybe, but hopefully you can kind of keep that at bay. Again, you made it here. Trust in your preparation. Continue to visualize every night. Take 10 or 15 minutes at the end of the night. Think about, okay, what is this race going to look like? How can I hit my targets? What's it going to look like? What is it going to feel like? Again, what could go wrong? How will I respond? And if you have a chance, you can drive the bike course, and you can drive most of the run course. You probably won't be able to get into the energy lab, and I'm not sure they'll allow bikes into the energy lab either. The other note, and I may say this later in the presentation as well, I will end up talking about Javi a little bit. One of the places that you may want to, if you are going to bike a little bit of the course, is come do the descent from Javi, because that gets a little bit treacherous. Just think about very successful training sessions and remember them. Hold on to them for your race, and you've got this. Just keep going. You've got this. Next slide. Logistics, again, look at that athlete guide whenever it comes out. Make sure there's nothing too funky in it. Confirm your check-in times. The registration check-in, we'll talk about this in a little bit, is at the King K Hotel. It's that Marriott right by the pier. I think it's the host. I know it's the host hotel as well. Finish packing everything. Make sure you're charging all your batteries, or you're changing your heart rate monitor battery if you need to. All of that stuff, just get it done before you get there so you don't need to worry about it. Next slide. All right. Race week, the days before the race. So this is a little bit earlier on race week. So next slide. All right, so check-in logistics, again, check-in on time. Hopefully that active.com email has come out. As I said, check-in, I'm assuming, because it always is, at the King K Hotel. It looks like check-in, and again, when we get the athlete guide, it may be different. I could be wrong. It looks like check-in is Sunday the 2nd through Wednesday the 5th. So even if you're racing Saturday, and like I say, you can always check. It looks like, I think you have to sign in by the 5th. I think they just want everybody taken care of. Parking and transportation. There are parking lots down Ali'i Drive, and then there's a parking lot kind of up the hill a little bit of a ways. The parking at the hotel is just for guests. So just kind of have a plan where you're going to park, or maybe you have a family member or friend who can drive you up to the hotel, drop you, loop around, come back and get you. So just be thinking about that beforehand. Have your QR code and photo ID when you arrive. That will make your life way easier. And you'll receive in your race packet, you get some giveaways like Kona is. You're going to get a lot of free stuff. It's a lot of fun. You get your timing chip. You got your race bib, helmet, bike stickers, kind of the standard issue stuff you get at all the other Ironmans, your swim cap, wristband, and gear bags. You'll get that too. Attend your athlete briefing. I know there's an English language briefing. It says on the event schedule on the 4th at 8 p.m. It's following the welcome back banquet. So it will probably start close to like 8:30, quarter to 9. In my experience, they don't run on time, but it's in the parking lot. So you can just kind of wander in whenever you want. You can pay for tickets and go to the banquet. Or you can just kind of come afterward and sit in the parking lot and watch. They'll have it on the screen. Bike and run gear drop off. I'm assuming, again, based on other Ironmans I've done, that you'll get a ticket when you check in that gives you a range of time that you can check your stuff in. Looks like it's between 11:30 and 6 p.m. on Wednesday and on Friday. And when you do your bike and run gear drop off, just familiarize yourself with, so make yourself familiar with transition, layout, and flow. And I will say, you will feel like $1 million, like a movie star, when you do your bike and gear drop off. You heard of the Kona bike count, and literally you'll be waiting in line with your bike with everybody else. You got to wear your helmet, if I remember correctly, and you walk down a red carpet into transition the day before, and you've got all of these people from the industry sitting in chairs and taking pictures, and they're from like Profile Design and Cervelo and Katana Roo and you name it, Envy, like everybody's there. And that's how you get the Kona bike count. And you just feel like walking in $1 million. A lot of times there's your bike vendor will show up and they'll give you like a free t-shirt of whatever brand your bike is. So it's very exciting. As you're checking in, I would try to get it done earlier. But I also just get nervous about getting everything dropped off, but you do have till 6 p.m. the night before. So you don't have to rush there. Next slide. So race day morning, you're going to see this phrase over and over again: apply sunscreen often and as much as you can. Apply it before you leave your room in the morning. You're going to need it. There was one year that I applied sunscreen not before I left my room, or not well enough before I left my room, and I ended up having the race numbers tattooed on my arm for months because I got burned around them. So don't be me. Don't get a race tattoo. You can usually get within about a half mile of the race start. So again, there is some parking kind of along Ali'i Drive. There's parking lots there. If you're from out of town, you're going to be coming from a different direction, most likely if you're coming from away from Ali'i, if you're coming up closer to Hawi. And there are going to be some parking lots. So you just have to, again, kind of walk down. There are shuttle buses along Ali'i. They start at Long's Drugs way at the very end, like 6 miles down. There's a plaza with a grocery store, drugstore, that kind of thing. There's a couple of restaurants there. And they'll come along that road. So just get on the side of the mountain away from the water and kind of flag them down as they're coming by. But they can be unreliable. They say they'll come every few minutes, but if you can get a ride, it's just way easier. Body markings on the tennis court behind the King K, where the briefings and the welcome banquet is. Last stop for your friends and family. What's going to happen is you're going to be shuttled along. There's going to be a bunch of tables, if it's the same as it's been in the past, and you're going to have a range of numbers. So you got to find your number, go to that line, and they've got, like a tattoo, like the little kid tattoos. I think some of the races may do this too. So a volunteer is going to just kind of paste your number on you. It's going to send you along. You're going to go back around the back of the hotel, and there's a bunch of scales there. They're going to weigh you on the scales. You're going to get weighed in, and then they're going to send you on your way. You're going to loop around the back of the hotel toward the water, and then you're going to get fed out right into the pier. And then you can hang out at your bike. You can probably go to transition bags if you have a race chaperone. They're pretty strict at Kona, so you'll have to find somebody to allow you to get to your bags, most likely. Next slide. All right, race day logistics. You're going to drop off the special needs bags. There'll be signs. There'll be, the big budget rental truck things that you could just toss your stuff with. Night before, 2 nights before, set out your gear for race morning. You want your kits, your swim clad goggles, your speed suit, sunscreen, right? Anything you're going to need for race day fueling products that you didn't put in your gear bags the day before. Morning and after race clothing if you're going to want to change after the race. And again, maybe after race nutrition, any race morning nutrition, like I've got my gel for before my swim that I'll obviously just bring with me that morning. Confirm race morning logistics. Where am I supposed to be? When does transition open? Who's my ride? That kind of thing. I always set 2 alarms. I've, knock on wood, never needed them, but I would set a couple of alarms, and maybe one of them is your friend or family member waking you up too. And again, sunscreen before you leave your place. We don't want any burnt people at Kona. Next slide. Nutrition restoration. Again, if you're a QT2 athlete or you've got a core diet fueling plan, you're going to know this already. Try to have a large dinner 2 nights before the race, large breakfast the day before the race. Try to eat it by 9 in the morning just to get it cleared through your system. You can say you want a bunch of carbs. You want a fair amount of protein and not a lot of fat for that last one, because you want to just be able to work everything through your body. Your last meal should be pretty light, so you go to bed almost a bit hungry. I have like a little bit of pasta and a little bit of chicken, and then I like it whatever, anytime between usually 8 and 9 at night, I go to bed and I'll have like a protein shake right when I go to bed, and that's it for me. Once you had your breakfast, you might have like a small sub for lunch that day, but then you're sort of snacking on stuff, pretzels, fat-free Fig Newtons, that kind of thing throughout the remainder of the day. Make sure you are still drinking though, not just cutting back on carbs. You're not cutting back on drinking. Make sure you hydrate. Early dinner, avoid caffeine. And again, try to take it easy as best you can. Next slide. Next slide, please. Reem, did I lose you guys?
Over here.
Oh, okay. Sorry, something just happened. So I'll just okay, so everybody can hear me. For whatever reason now, my screen isn't moving. I don't know what happened. Maybe Reem froze or something. So you're gonna have to just listen to my voice, and that's it. So race day logistics, we did that. We got drop off your special needs bags. You got to set out your gear for morning. Oh, there we go. Sunscreen before you leave your place. Again, you're going to hear that probably 3 or 4 more times before the day is up. So race day, morning nutrition. So we've skipped along here. You're going to have breakfast. When you eat your breakfast, it's going to be super simple. It's not going to be like, the buffet at Denny's or whatever, right? It's going to be really easy. Again, if you're a QT2 athlete, you're doing something real simple: applesauce, banana, a scoop of whey protein, and sports drink. You're going to try to eat it 3.5 hours prior to your race start. You're going to kind of sip on, I have like a little throwaway bottle, sip on my sports drink until the race starts. And then again, a gel. Depending on the type of athlete you are, depending on what your fuel plan calls for, you may take a caffeinated gel, you may not. I do not take caffeine because I would get way too hyper. So, figure out what kind of person you are and whether you need to be kind of hyped up or not. I do not need to be hyped up. So, race morning, let's talk about, next slide, please. Race morning logistics. Again, have a plan, figure out who your ride is before the race. Transition is open from 4:30 to 6:15. If you get there early, you're going to be sitting around a lot. So just keep that in mind to make sure you're sipping on your drink. You can usually kind of wander around a little bit. There's going to be, like, I always end up meeting my friends. There's usually this giant Gatorade blow up bottle. There's one on the pier usually. That's where I kind of spot for transition when I'm running. And then there's usually one by the King K Hotel, and we always usually just meet there. Sometimes it's kind of hard to get out of transition, but usually I can do it. And there'll be porta potties kind of lined up along the pier for transition, but then also outside the hotel, which is kind of nice because not everybody knows they're there. So you can kind of sneak over and use those. You drop off your morning clothes bag, your special needs bag. There's not a super great opportunity for a swim warm up. You're going to swim out. The the swim start actually starts out in the water. You're not running into the water for it. So you've got time. They may or may not kind of let you leave 10-ish minutes early to do a little bit of a swim warm up. I also want to say during the week, if you are at Digby Beach doing your practice swims, just your training session swims, Digby Beach is not as glamorous as you might expect. It's just kind of this little strip of sand. But everybody's there and it's kind of the place to be. They do have, when you do your practice swims, they do have some outdoor showers there. This guy says, Kim, yeah, you can go across the pier. There actually is a beach that's right by the hotel that if you want to hop in and do your swimming there, you will be left alone. You can easily do it. Yeah, there are some public showers. So after you swim, you can hop in. There's an outdoor shower there. There's some changing rooms. If you arrive early enough in the day during the week to do your practice swim, in the past, there's been like a Gatorade tent set up there that you can check your stuff in. I don't always get there early enough. But there's like little cubbies you can put your stuff in while you're there too. And knock on wood, again, I haven't never had any trouble with that, but just keep that in mind too. And again, you see apply sunscreen. You're going to see this like on every slide from here on out. Next slide, please. All right. So again, follow your race fueling plan. It's done you well so far, right? Race with what you have trained with and carry what you need. Try to boost up your fluids the first hour of the bike just to get that base in and make sure that you are getting in the habit of drinking. There's, I believe, 20 aid stations on the bike. They're all, the first couple are 10 miles apart, but then there's one 5 miles after that, another 10 miles and 5 miles. So there's ample time to get hydration. And again, every mile on the run, which is typical for an Ironman. Again, it's kind of standard issue, Gatorade endurance, water. They do have the Morton gels, caffeinated and non-caff. They'll have Red Bull, they'll have Coke. They may have some additional sodium. I know on the run in the past, base salt has been out there, but just pack a bunch. It doesn't hurt to pack a little bit extra. It's not like they weigh a lot. Next slide. So just a note about Morton gels. We don't recommend them just because, as you can see here, they're pretty low in sodium. They have 22 milligrams versus about 200 in a lot of other gels. And they're high in caffeine. You either get none or you get 100. And you may not want 100 milligrams all at once. I know I would just be flatlining if I had that much. So it's just something to keep in mind. As you are preparing for the race and thinking about what you need to pack on the bike. Next slide. Yep. Race day, swim wave. So Thursday, you can see there's a whole variety of people. It's all women and pro women. And then a few of the men's age groups, some of the men's age groups are on Thursday, and Saturday, pro men and the rest of the men. You can see this, they'll have in the athlete guide. It's on the website right now. And I think we all got emails a couple months ago that laid out all the swim waves. Next slide. All right, course overview of the swim. It's one loop. So there's no running on the beach in between. It's a wave starts, as you see, by age group. You all know it's a speed suit only swim or no speed suit and just a tri kit. I think the water temperature is usually about 75 there. The sun may or may not be rising as you start, depending on what time you start. Sometimes there's a little bit of chop. There was one year I did it where the waves were coming in, but kind of once you get past those first initial waves, it seems smooth to me. It wasn't horrible. And it's really neat. You can see if anybody cares. I mean, I know you'll be racing, but just take a moment to appreciate. You can see all the way down to the bottom of the ocean. You can see there's sea turtles. There's all these colorful fish and coral just kind of beneath you. And it's just kind of just a really neat place. One of the years when I dropped my bike off the day before the race, I saw 2 dolphins, in the water playing. It's just a really neat place. This will be, if not the most exciting, one of the most exciting race starts you will ever experience. So just make sure, Jesse Kropelnicki, founder of QT2, calls it an arousal level. Try to keep your arousal level kind of mid-range. You want it like a 5 or 6. You don't want it off the charts. And again, don't take a caffeinated gel if you're going to be off the wall when you start your race. It's just going to blow your day up. So just stay calm, appreciate the day, get your swim start in so your body's nice and warm, and then just get going. Next slide. Again, it's an in-water wave start. Here's a picture. You can see there's boats. You can see what'll happen is before each of the waves, for anybody who hasn't been there before, there'll be a bunch of guys in kayaks and on surfboards kind of, swimming back and forth in front of you, making sure nobody's getting too far ahead. And then as soon as the cannon goes off, they turn and everybody will go right past them. It's really a neat sight. In terms of what your time's going to be, add 4 to 5 minutes to what your typical time in a wetsuit is, if those are the typical races you've been doing. Your first 200-300 meters, as everybody's getting moving, they're going to be very excited to get out. So just get out with everybody and then settle in. I'm usually able to find somebody I can draft off of. There's a ton of buoys. I'm a extremely poor sighter, and that's why I love Lake Placid, because they've got that cable under the water. But this is a course where you really can't not sight well, because they've got so much support staff. They've got kayakers, they've got buoys, they've got the body glove boat, which is huge, that you're going to swim right around. So there's a lot of good course markers. And then presumably you're in with a bunch of people who know how to sight. So you're just following everybody along. And it's just a really, really easy swim. You're swimming almost parallel to the shore. The turns will be crowded as in every race, so stay wide as you need to. Next slide. All right, so the bike course overview. Drinking during the first hour, you've heard a lot about hydration. Watch for a ton of drafting, especially as on the Kuakini Highway, because you're going to go up, you're going to kind of take a left and kind of take like a short loop, and then you're going to go up the Kuakini Highway. And people are going to be going crazy out there, right? They're all excited. They're done with the swim. They're excited to be on the bike. They're out riding just a little bit too hard. So be very mindful of that. It's a somewhat narrow road and there's a turnaround. So you just really need to be thinking about and riding defensively, right? You're going to get crowds of spectators throughout the town, and then they thin out. They don't think out. Sorry about that. They thin out on the Queen K. So it's going to get a little bit lonely. It's going to get a little bit windy out on the Queen K, or perhaps a lot windy. I know there was one year where I was going kind of down a hill on the Queen K, and the wind, I was so depressed. The wind was so bad that I was going like 9 miles an hour. And I thought, this is just how it is. So just mentally prepare. It is a tough course. It's hot and it's windy. So just be aware of that. Riding into Javi, I found, can be a little bit rainy. You may get sprinkled on, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It is windy coming at you as you're going up the incline into Javi. For me, feels like it takes forever. So just be prepared for that. Then you're going to turn around in Javi and come down, and the special needs bags will be right past the turnaround as you come down. It'll be easy to stop. It's not like you're going to be in the middle of the descent. They'll be easy to stop. You pull over if you need to. And then as you're going on the Javi descent down, be very, very careful. Nice loose grip. I talk to myself the whole entire ride, scoot back on the saddle. It is really, really windy. You will hit those crosswinds. And I have seen carnage on that. I have seen carnage in Javi, both going up with people just saying, this is crap, and I'm just going to stop for a minute with the wind coming at you, and then coming down. If you stop thinking about it for a second, you can lose control of your bike. And I can't stress that enough. Just be very, very careful coming down. And that's again why I usually try to practice the descent once I get there, just to kind of remember, get my mind back in that. And again, special needs right as you turn around from Javi. Next slide. Around mile 80, which is now you've done the descent from Javi, you're turning left, and then you're turning right to get back onto Queen K to go back into town. That's right around mile 80. At that point, you should be ready to go. You should be like, all right, I'm going back into town. What's my next move, right? It's a long, long slog back in the Queen K. I tend to get lonely there. For me, the bike has sort of thinned out a little bit. There aren't as many crowds. Athletes are starting to fade a little bit because they've taken Javi too hard. They've taken, they haven't paced their bike very well. So be very careful. Do not be one of those guys. You do not want to then enter the run already depleted and already having overpaced everything. So just be very mindful of that. It is, in my opinion, a long ride back to town. So just know that going in, right? It's going to be long. If you are a heavy sweater, if you have an aero helmet that's not well vented, some people will use a road helmet. I've done that one year. You want to be able to just throw water everywhere you can on your body at every aid station. You can see on these aid stations, everything is kind of laid out. So you can very easily see what's what, but just make sure through every aid station, you are just pouring water on your body. Again, you know this, you want to pee twice on the bike. And you can even consider up to 3 to 4 bottles in the first hour. You can talk to your coach about this if you want. Start practicing that now so that it's not the first time on race day that you're taking in so much sports drink, because your gut's not going to like that very much. Next slide, please. All right. Race day, pacing on the bike, your heart rate's, we like it to look kind of like you, not a true you, but like a little smile maybe, where your heart rate's going to be high to start with. You're coming out of the water, and then you're settling into your race. And then the second half, you want it just, and this is the same for power too, right? You want it a little bit higher than the first half. It's kind of like all of these bikes or runs that we do where we're descending the pace along the bike. That's kind of what we want it to look like on race day, right? So just keep that in mind. And again, that also just kind of sort of plays into the whole idea that it's your race. You want to train in your zones. You want to stay in your zones, and not try to be a hero on race day. Like I said, same with power. Don't overdo the power first 10 miles. Same with heart rate. Wind and heat are going to affect your day. Just make sure you're kind of constantly assessing that. How do I really feel? And can I go a little bit harder? Should I pull back? Am I just right where I am? Could always fall back on rate of perceived exertion too. I've done that in the past. Next slide, please. All right, so just penalties. Hopefully, we never ever have to even know these, but we should, blue card drafting violation, you're going to get a penalty. Make sure, and again, you're going to see a fair amount of drafting. Just try not to get stuck in it as best you can. Don't try to deliberately spit yourself out. Just try to, it'll get straightened out as the race goes on. Need to keep 6 bike lengths between your bike's front wheel, the rear wheel of the guy or gal in front of you. Again, passing the left, we all know that. 3 violations, you get a red card and then you're out of the race. A blocking violation I've not gotten had a yellow card, but I've had people get called on me where I had a lady just kind of hanging out. And I don't know what she was thinking. And she was stopped. So, and the littering violation, don't litter. Hawaii is beautiful. Next slide, please. All right, run course. So you've made it off the bike. Everybody's really happy. You're excited. You're waving at your friends and family. First part of the run, like along Ali'i for the first, you're going like almost 5.5 miles out Ali'i, and then you're going like 5.5 miles back, and then you're going up. It's along the ocean. It's pretty flat. There is an aid station immediately outside of transition. So if you see it, I almost always miss it. Start taking that water. The name of the game for the first couple miles especially is to just keep yourself cool. Start conservatively. We'll talk a little bit more about that in transition. So you're going out of Ali'i for the first 10-ish miles. There's, again, aid stations every mile. You will see there's a special table for the pros, and I believe that comes first. So they take their stuff and then we get all of our stuff, but it'll be very, very well marked. There'll be signs all along saying, water, Gatorade, that kind of thing. You're going to go out Ali'i, you're going to swing back around Ali'i, and then you're going to go up Palani, and then I think it's Palani, and then you're going to take a left back on the Queen K. So you're going to revisit that highway again, right? You're going to follow the Queen K, and then you're going to take a left into the Energy Lab around mile 16 to 18-ish. This is where for sometimes for me, it gets a little bit lonely. For some, the sun's starting to go down. It's been a long day. Again, you're at mile 18. There is an aid station, or there has been when I've done it, in the Energy Lab. There's a turnaround that you do, and it's been Red Bull in the past. So it's kind of exciting because they're playing their music and they've got their fun little blow-ups and that kind of thing. But it is a little bit lonely. And I will tell you, you are all probably smarter than me. But the first time I raced, I thought, okay, Energy Lab, that's got to be something really exciting. Something's going on in the Energy Lab. And it turns out it's just in an industrial park. So it's not very exciting at all. It's just adding miles. It's just adding miles to the run. So it's not very exciting. So just get out of there, right? And then once you're out of there, you're taking a right onto the Queen K and you're heading back into town. And then once you get to you can start hearing noise as you're getting closer to town. And then once you're at mile 25, you're going downhill and you're heading toward the finish line. Next slide, please. So pacing again, your heart rate for the run, it's your bike heart rate, generally speaking, you're plus 5 to 10 beats. That's what we consider a good run. A good run, you've got your heart rate higher than your bike. Same with, power on the run. If you run with power, your coach is going to give you just a power to aim for, and whether your pace is 14 miles or 14 minutes a mile or 7 minutes a mile, that's what your power is, your power. So you talk to your coach about that. Just pacing in general, again, settle in the first 3 miles. Start a little conservatively if you need to, because there's no need for you to be pushing the marathon straight out of the gate, right? Don't force it over the hills. There's that big one going up, that big one coming down. And other than that, it's pretty rolling. Slow down if you're overheating. I'd rather be slow than have to drop out because something happens. Again, focus on staying cool, fueling those first miles out of transition. Again, start on the slower side if you need to. Consider a white hat or a visor. If you wear a hat, especially, you can dump ice in it and then toss it on your head. If your stomach starts to bloat, it could be a lack of sodium, or it could be that you're taking some kind of stress on. So it could be heat stress. It could be just from intensity, right? So just take some salt, slow yourself down. If your fingers are tingling, that's potassium deficit. Just have a banana, have a salt. You could skip a gel, have a banana, take a salt tab, whatever. Just kind of assess. And this is maybe part of the visualization that you may be doing for race day. Oh, my fingers tingle. I just need a banana and that'll fix it, right? So be thinking about that kind of stuff. Next slide, please. So mental fitness, again, I'm sure you all know this, right? You focus on your goals as your number one priority. What do you have complete control over? It's your attitude and your fueling plan, right? And then you can focus on targets, worry about that secondarily, stick to your plan. Again, how are you going to react when something doesn't go according to plan? I'm taking on stress. Well, I need to slow down. And that's just the way it goes, right? And then outcomes, you'd be left to the second half of the run, or you don't worry about them, because after all, Kona is a victory lap. So you're out there because you qualified, you're the best of the best. Just that's a great thing, right? Again, be who you are. Just stick to your plan, do your pacing, you'll be all right, right? Next slide, please. Just a quick note about transitions. The train, you can see here, these white tents, those are the transition tents. And then to the left of those is where you're going to hang your bags when you go into transition. It is like hooks, kind of like Lake Placid has been in the past. And you can see all the bikes here. Just get in and out as quickly as possible, because the second you get into that tent, your body's going to be taking on heat. So just get in, get out as quick as you can. Grab sunscreen at both transitions. A lot of times, at least in the women's tent, I can't speak for the men's, we've got ladies with a ton of the gloves and a bunch of sunscreen and just kind of wipe you down before you get out. So just take that extra 3 seconds so you're not miserable on the run. And again, just do not take it out too fast. That's kind of the name of the game. Next slide, please. Just race day, post race, bike checkout, 7 p.m. to 1 a.m. You can have a friend or a family member pick it up. There is Tri-Bike Transport does a valet only option. It's $50. My husband, who was my Sherpa, is strongly asking me to strongly consider doing that. So we don't have to go till the next morning to get our stuff or my stuff. So you might want to do your friends and family a favor, right? And not make them go in. So that's an option as well. And then the finishers banquet, or the banquet of champions, is that Sunday, the 9th at 6 o'clock p.m. And it's in the King K parking lot where like everything else goes on. Next slide, please. So just some side events. I mean, Ironman has some of these listed on, I think all of them except the one listed on their website. There's a fun run on the 1st if your friends or family are in and want to do a fun run. There is a training swim on Sunday that has been closed. But you can just swim anytime during the week as well. You just won't get an official t-shirt, I guess, or something. I will say, I think Molly Czar told me this once, is like, don't go swimming in the ocean toward dusk, because that's when the sharks come in. So just make sure you're going in the morning. Just a little piece of advice. There's a kids dip and dash on the 2nd. If your kids are interested, I think you can just sign up on the Ironman website. And then there is an underpants run. This is a picture of it. I've done it a couple of times. It's it's a 1.5 mile run. I use it as a recovery run. I probably won't do it this year. Vendors will be out like tossing baseball hats to you. It's just kind of a fun thing to do, and it raises money for charity. So there's also that as well if you need to get a nice recovery run in and you don't want to wear too many clothes. Next slide. I think that was it. Yeah, if anybody has questions, I'm happy to try to answer them. You guys are making it easy on me.
Yeah, go ahead and come off mute and ask her questions, or if you want to put them in the chat box, you can do that as well.
Hey, this is Alex. I have a question for you. My family's staying about 45 minutes north of the venue. How hard is it going to be to like drive down that main highway, like the morning of, or like for my family to come watch? Like, do they totally shut down the highway, or?
I'm trying to remember, I think they're going to have a tough time. That would be something I would check in when you check in. When you register, I would check in with them because there's a couple of people who stay like way out at Waikoloa, which is kind of out toward Hawaii. And if I remember correctly, they have a pretty tight lockdown on the road. There'll be a couple of cars that slip through. They'll be all right if they come in really early because they won't be, they won't close it down until closer to the swim time. But that means they're going to be stuck in there like all day. So I would check in. I always stay the other side, so I just don't know as much about it, but I think they may have a little bit of a headache if they don't get in.
Okay. Cool, thanks. I'll look into it.
The hotel will probably know too.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
There's a question in the chat box from Chad. We have access to bikes in the AM, right? Air and Tire
Yes.
Nutrition.
Yep. Yes, you do. And you're allowed, if I remember correctly, you're allowed to leave your helmet on your bike, and I believe you are allowed to clip your shoes in. I believe that's the case too. Is it important to rinse post-swim with the freshwater hoses? I run through them. It's not like you have to go grab a hose and spray yourself. There's like a tent and there's hoses hanging down. So you can just kind of run through and you get the idea, washing off. I mean, it's nice because it kind of gets any kind of sand and grossness off of you, but it's not, I mean, I guess you could run around the tent, but if you run through it, you get, I'm going to put in quotes, kind of washed off enough. Yes, Robert has a question. You do check bike and run gear in the day before. Yeah. So if you have your banana, if you're a QT2 athlete and you're supposed to have a banana coming out onto the run, it's going to be kind of gross unless you can get into that morning of the race. You can get in and slip a banana in, or that aid station coming right out should have bananas. So you can maybe grab half a banana coming out.
Hey, Russet, this is Felix. Thanks for doing this tonight.
Oh, yeah.
Quick question for you. Do you know if the drinks on the bike are the same as the other Ironmans, where they have like the orange Gatorade and then they have the lemon lime for the run?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they will be the same. Yep.
Got it. Thanks.
I know some people are very particular about their orange and their lemon lime too. It's funny.
Can't stand the orange.
Oh, no. Yeah, you're going to have to bring yours then with you, huh? But now you know, so you'll have a plan for it. So
yeah.
In the swim, exit directly on the stairs. We stand up in the sand first. Well, you want to, so you'll swim until you can't anymore. And there's like, you might take I'm trying to remember, you might take a couple of steps in the stands, but pretty much there's going to be stairs almost coming right down into the water. And somebody's going to be there. They're going to have a ton of volunteers, and somebody is literally just going to grab you and yank you up. So you'll kind of stand up sort of a little bit, but mostly you're going to be right up to the stairs. So you'll stand up, take a couple steps, and then you go up the stairs. And watch, it'll be completely different this year, but that's the way it's been done when I've been there. Somebody asked, you mentioned 4 minutes slower for swim. What has your experience been in the bike? Slower than other IMs, or really depend on wind conditions? So I will tell you that cycling is not my strongest discipline, and I am always slower in Kona than anywhere else. That being said, that is not necessarily true for others, but generally speaking, people are going to be slower in Kona. The wind conditions, especially in Hawaii, people will check. I remember there was one year I did it, and there's a woman who does like who sails boats, and she was like tracking the way the wind was going, and that descent to Hawaii, you can be really, really fast sometimes, but definitely sometimes the wind, in fact, the earlier you get out of town, the better, because the wind really does pick up. So I have found that generally speaking, people are slower on the bike. Oh, Dawn's asking me tough questions. The first time I did Ironman World Championship, what was the most unique thing for you? Clearly the Kona bike count made a huge impact on me, because I'm still talking about the red carpet and leading into it, and just feeling like $1 million. It really is, I think, a party all week. There's always something going on when you're going down Ali'i Drive for like your training runs the week leading in. There's like Gatorade, goose set up, power bar set up. There's like tents all along. They just make you feel like $1 million. So if you've forgotten your nutrition, or if you're like my husband who comes and spectates and wants to try all the new stuff, you can try all the new stuff. So there just is like a whole party all week. It's really, really fun. Oh, I said Hawaii is pretty steep like Placid. No, it is not like Placid. And it's not that it's so steep. It's what I would call a long slog. And I don't know the grade offhand. I could probably flip back, or if you go back and look at the slides, it's mostly the wind. So it's not, that's what takes so long, in my opinion, to get up there. In fact, I have seen there was one year that I did it where I literally just saw people had abandoned their bikes, because I think they had given up all hope just climbing up to Hawaii, because you've got a little bit of rain, which is like kind of refreshing, but then you've got this wind that just keeps coming at you. So it's just be mentally, that's why you got your mental fitness behind you. Just be prepared for that. So yeah, it's not so steep. It's just long. All right. No more questions. If anybody has a question afterward, clearly I love talking about Ironman, so you're welcome to reach out to me if you want, or like I say, and you can ask your coaches. I'm sure they've got some advice for you.
All right.
Thank
Thanks
you,
very
Russet.
much, Russet.
All right, thanks you guys. Have a good night. We'll see you soon.
Oh, can you send this
Yes.
presentation?
Yeah, Reem will record it.
Yeah, the
She is
webinar's
recording
been
it.
recorded, and it'll
Okay.
be up on the QT2 Systems YouTube channel, and the link will also be up on the QT2 website, right on the homepage.
Great.
And for
thank you.
any team and training athletes, we'll make sure we'll get you that link. We can, I'll put it on the group page on Facebook.
Great, thanks.
Hey, Fred. I'm getting excited.